You waited too long to learn the rules. Most people read survival books. This raccoon read the journals of people who actually survived. Sarajevo, Grozny, Aleppo, Caracas, Homs, Donetsk. 411 first-person accounts, diaries pulled from the rubble of apartment buildings, voice memos recorded on dying phones by people who never got to upload them, letters written to children who were already dead when the ink was drying. 7 rules repeat in every single one of them. 7. Nobody teaches these rules, not the tactical channels with their promo codes, not the prepper forums with their bug-out lists, not the gray-bearded instructors selling 2-day courses for the price of a used car. Because the people who actually learned these rules were too busy surviving to teach, and when they finally came home, they were too broken to talk. So tonight, season finale, we break that silence. This raccoon pulled every account, cross-referenced every pattern, threw out the exceptions, and kept only what repeated across every collapse, in every language, in every decade. What remained was 7 laws, 7 unspoken rules of a permanent collapse. Not a weekend emergency, not a 2-week grid down, a permanent collapse. The kind that lasts years, the kind that rewrites who you are. You waited too long, but you came back, so listen. The survival industry sold you a fantasy. They sold you a 70-pound backpack full of gear that will not pass a single checkpoint. They sold you a solar panel that will not power anything that matters in month 3. They sold you a fantasy of a lone wolf with a bug-out bag heading into the woods where the deer are and the government is not. And every survivor this raccoon read, from every collapse in the last 40 years, laughed at that fantasy. Some of them laughed, and then they cried, because the fantasy is what killed their friends. A carpenter from Sarajevo named Dario Kovac wrote in his journal in the winter of 1993, "The men who went to the woods are dead. The men who stayed in the city are mostly dead. The men who are alive are the ones who understood that survival is not a location. It is a set of rules you learn by breaking." Rules you learn by breaking. Remember that phrase, because every single one of the 7 laws tonight was learned by someone who broke it first, who watched their family starve because they broke it, who lost a daughter because they broke it, who traded their wedding ring for a box of antibiotics because they broke it. These are not rules from a classroom. These are rules scraped off the walls of basements in cities that do not exist on tourist maps anymore. The tactical bros will not tell you these rules. They can't. If they taught you these rules, you would stop buying their gear. Because the 7 laws are not about gear. They are about what happens to a human being when the grid stays off for 300 days. When the neighbors you wave to on Saturday are knocking on your door on Tuesday night with a knife. When the child you swore you would die for is starving, and you have to decide whether to break a principle you have held for 40 years. The survival industry cannot sell you the answer to that question, so they sell you a flashlight with a strobe function instead. Tonight, no flashlights. Tonight, the rules. This raccoon is going to walk you through 7 laws. Each one has a name, each one has a story, each one has a price. The price is the part they do not put in the books. And at the end, there is a darker truth that ties them together. A truth that every long-term survivor this raccoon studied carries like a second spine. A truth that is the real cost of walking out of a collapse alive. You are going to hear it. And you are going to decide whether that price is one you are willing to pay. Because if it is not, the collapse will pay it for you, and you will not get to choose the coin. The 7th law is the one that breaks everyone. This raccoon will not lie to you about that. If you are looking for comfort, turn this video off now. Comfort is what killed more people in the first 30 days of Caracas than looters did. Before we get to the first law, this raccoon owes you the doctrine, the frame. The reason any of this is rules and not just stories. Because stories are what the industry sells. Doctrine is what keeps you alive. Here is the doctrine. Survival doctrine is not written by survivors. Survivors are too busy surviving. By the time they are done, they are not writers. They are ghosts. They are people who sit at a kitchen table in a country they fled to and stare at a cup of coffee for 40 minutes without drinking it. They are not going to teach you. They can barely teach themselves to sleep. So the doctrine has to be reconstructed by somebody who reads the journals, who listens to the voice memos, who cross-references the accounts and finds the patterns. That is what this raccoon did for 2 years. That is what this season was. That is what these 7 laws are. A reconstruction, not an opinion, not a theory, a pattern that repeats. And here is what the pattern tells you. The collapse is not an event. The collapse is a career. The survivors who lasted beyond month 6, beyond year 1, beyond year 3 are not the ones who had the best gear at hour 0. They are the ones who understood on day 1 that they were entering a career, a new profession, a profession with no benefits, no pension, no weekends, and a very short average tenure. The ones who treated it like a weekend camping trip did not see month 2. The ones who treated it like a career saw month 60. That is the doctrine. Everything from here flows from that. Now, the first law, the loneliness law. You will betray your principles before you betray your family. Plan for it. That sentence is the coldest sentence in this raccoon's notes, and it is the one every long-term survivor agrees on without exception. Not most, all. Every journal that made it past month 4 contains some version of that sentence, written by people who, before the collapse, would have told you they would die before they compromised a principle. Written by teachers, by priests, by a judge from Sarajevo named Dario Kovac, the carpenter you heard a moment ago, who was a carpenter only after the war because his law office had been turned into a field kitchen. Before the siege, Dario ruled on property disputes. He believed in contracts, in the rule of paper. In the 3rd month, he traded a silver cross his grandmother gave him, blessed on her deathbed, for 4 cans of corned beef. His daughter was 7. She had not eaten a full meal in 11 days. He wrote in the margin of his journal that night, "I used to tell my clients that a man without principles is an animal. Tonight, I am an animal. My daughter is full. I would do it again tomorrow, with something more precious, if there was anything more precious left." There is a pattern in the Dario journals, and in every other long-term journal this raccoon pulled. The survivors all describe the same arc. Week 1, they hold every principle. Week 3, they bargain with small ones. Week 6, they trade away the medium ones. Month 4, they commit the act that 5 months earlier, they would have said to find them in reverse. And then, and this is the part nobody warns you about, they keep going. They do not break. They do not collapse morally. They simply install a new principle. Family first. The old principles were luxuries of an economy that no longer exists. The loneliness law is this: you will be lonelier than you have ever been, because the person you were before the collapse will die in the 3rd month, and there will be nobody to mourn him. Only you. And you will not have time. Plan for it. That is the law. Not plan to avoid it. Plan for it. The survivors who broke were the ones who believed they would not break. The ones who lasted were the ones who, in the 1st week, quietly told themselves, "I will do things I do not recognize. I will make trades I cannot describe to my mother. I will become a stranger to the man I was on Sunday, and I will let that stranger live because the old man is dead now, and the only way to honor him is to keep his family alive." The industry will tell you to stockpile moral strength like it is a can of beans. It is not a can of beans. It is a rope that frays a little every day. Plan for the fraying. Do not be surprised by it. And, this is important, do not judge the survivor next to you for his own fraying. The man who traded his wedding ring for penicillin is the same man who, 6 months earlier, would have spit on the man he is today. You are not going to be different. Stop pretending you will. Call back to episode 15. This raccoon spent an entire episode talking about the predators you will meet in a permanent collapse. The ones who were predators before, and the ones who became predators during. Here is the part episode 15 did not say outright. You, watching this right now, will be a predator too. Not the worst kind, not the kind who hurts the weak for sport, but the kind who crosses a line he swore he would never cross. Because the line moved, the ground moved, the whole map moved, and you had a child to feed. The loneliness law. You will betray your principles before you betray your family. Plan for it. The second law. The Barter truth. The first month is cash. The second is cigarettes. The third is antibiotics. The fourth is bullets. This one is in every journal. Every single one. The currencies are sometimes slightly different. A mechanic from Grozny named Anton Mirich wrote that in his city, the fourth month was not bullets, but clean diesel. A nurse from Aleppo wrote that hers was not antibiotics, but insulin. But the pattern, the escalation, the shrinking of what money can buy is identical. Month 1. Cash still works. The banks are closed, but the reflex is not. People take paper money because they believe, on some animal level, that the power is coming back on, and their deposits are coming back, and the paper in their hand will mean something again. This belief holds for about 4 weeks. Then the belief dies. Month 2. Cigarettes. Because cigarettes are divisible. Because cigarettes are addictive, which means there is always a buyer. Because cigarettes do not require refrigeration. Because one carton is small enough to hide in a coat pocket and valuable enough to buy a day of safe passage through a neighborhood that, 3 months ago, was where you went for coffee. Anton Mirich wrote in the second month that he traded his wife's gold earrings for 2 packs of Marlboros. He also wrote that the man who sold him the Marlboros laughed at the trade. Because the gold was worthless by then. Only Anton did not know it yet. Month 3. Antibiotics. Because now the infections are winning. The cuts from broken glass in the 3rd floor apartment you climbed into because the door was jammed. The wound on your wife's hand from opening a can without a can opener. The abscess in your son's tooth because he has not seen a dentist in 90 days and probably will not see one for another 400. Amoxicillin becomes the currency of the surviving. A single callback to episode 3. Remember episode 3? This raccoon told you gold was useless in a collapse. The comments that week. This raccoon will not repeat what the comments said, but every one of those comments was written by someone who has never opened a siege journal in their life. Gold is a month 1 currency. It loses half its value in week 3 and 90% of its value in month 2. By the time the antibiotics matter, the gold is a paperweight. An expensive paperweight that marks you as a target. The people who tried to buy safety with gold in Sarajevo in 1993 are mostly in unmarked graves. Learn the currency escalation, write it down, live by it. Build your stockpile around the curve, not around the denomination. If you want to know what to hoard for month 4, look at what the survivors of an existing collapse are fighting over today. That is the currency. That is the only currency that will matter when you need it. The Barter truth. The first month is cash. The second is cigarettes. The third is antibiotics. The fourth is bullets. Plan for the curve, not the moment. The third law. The invisibility imperative. The survivor who survives is the one nobody talks about. This one is the hardest for Americans to understand. Because American culture, for 200 years, has been built on the fantasy of the rugged individual who is visible, who is known, who is recognized, the sheriff, the gunslinger, the homesteader on the ridge whose name everybody in the valley knows. In a permanent collapse, every single one of those people is dead by the end of month 3. The survivor is the one nobody talks about. Yelena Rashidova, the nurse from Aleppo, wrote this in her ledger. She called it the invisibility imperative. In her ledger, she has a list of 12 families from her building. 7 of them had known names. 7 of them were dead or taken by the end of year 1. 5 of them were ghosts. 5 of them survived. Call back to episode 4. This raccoon spent 40 minutes on gray man principles. The idea that in a collapse, you want to be the person nobody profiles, nobody remembers, nobody targets. Here is what episode 4 did not have room to say. Gray man is not a technique. Gray man is a religion. It is a total reorientation of your identity. Because most of the things that make you feel alive, being recognized, being known, being respected, are the exact things that will kill you in a permanent collapse. The visible get taxed. The visible get conscripted. The visible get raided. The visible get invited to meetings they cannot refuse. The visible get their names on lists. The visible get photographed. The visible get remembered by people who, in month 11, will come looking for someone to blame. The invisible do not get any of those things. The invisible have a small light at night and no light at the window. The invisible cook food that does not smell. The invisible have children who have been trained since week 1 not to wave from the balcony. The invisible have a last name nobody on the block can pronounce. The invisible wear the same coat every day, the most forgettable coat they could find, and they never, ever wear the coat they wore before the collapse, the coat from their old life. The coat that would suggest they used to have something. The invisibility imperative is harder than it sounds, because for the first 3 months, the instinct is to be useful, to be recognized for being useful, to be the guy who fixed the generator, to be the woman who knew how to set a broken arm. And the survivors this raccoon studied all agreed. Being useful is fine. Being known for being useful is a death sentence. The line between them is paper thin, and you have to walk it every single day for years. A man named Samir Halabi from Homs wrote in the 9th month of his city's siege, "I have saved 11 lives with my medical training. Only 3 of those 11 know my full name. The other 8 will die before they learn it. That is the only reason I will live to save 12. Let that sit. The only reason he lived to save a 12th was that he refused to let the first 11 know who he was. Usefulness without identity. Help without signature. Presence without profile. That is the invisibility imperative. That is how you outlast the list makers. The survivor who survives is the one nobody talks about. The 4th law. The calorie accounting law. Every action costs calories. Every calorie costs a decision. Do the math before you move. In the normal world, you do not count calories this way. You do not wake up in the morning and say, I have 1,800 calories in my body today, and I must spend them on the following list of actions in the following order of priority. You wake up, you drink coffee, you move. Your body is an account with a credit line. In a permanent collapse, after month 2, there is no credit line. Your body is an account with exactly what you put in it yesterday, and if you did not put in enough yesterday, the account is overdrawn, and the body starts cannibalizing itself to cover the deficit. The body eats the muscle first, then the organ reserves, then the cognitive function. By the time you notice, the account has been overdrawn for 2 weeks, and you are making decisions with a brain that is running on fumes. Marco Guerrero, an accountant from Caracas, kept a notebook through the 3rd and 4th years of the Venezuelan collapse. The notebook is, literally, an accounting ledger. Debits on the left, credits on the right. But the currency is calories. Every entry is a calorie. Walked 3 blocks to the water point, minus 140 calories. Carried 8 liters of water home, minus 220. Argued with neighbor about the generator for 11 minutes, minus 90, because emotional stress burns fuel too, and the accountants know this. Boiled rice over open fire, inhaled smoke for 40 minutes, minus 60, because your lungs are going to charge you for that later. Every action a debit, every meal a credit, and every week the credits were smaller than the week before. Marco's ledger shows something terrible. In the first year, his daily intake averaged 2,100 calories. In the second year, 1,600. In the third year, 1,200. In the fourth year, 840. He weighed 185 pounds before the collapse. In year 4, he weighed 109. And he was one of the survivors. He was the one doing the math. The calorie accounting law is this: every action costs calories. Every calorie costs a decision. Do the math before you move. Before you help the neighbor. Before you walk across town to check on your sister. Before you argue with the militia kid at the checkpoint. Before you run. Before you climb a flight of stairs that does not need to be climbed. Do the math. Because in the normal world, a wasted hour is an hour. In a permanent collapse, a wasted 200 calories is a day of your daughter's next week. The survivors this raccoon studied all had some version of Marco's ledger. Some of them did it on paper, some of them did it in their head. A handful of them, the ones who lasted the longest, had a phrase they would say to themselves, silently, every time they were about to move. The phrase was always some version of, "Is this worth 800 grams of body weight?" Because 800 grams is roughly what a human body loses in a week of a 500 calorie deficit. And if the answer was no, they did not move. They sat down. They conserved. They outlasted the people who were still running on the habits of an economy that had stopped existing 16 weeks ago. Call back to episode 11. This raccoon did an episode on food storage, on what to stockpile, on rotation. The comments were full of people asking how many cans was enough, how many years, how many pounds of rice. Wrong question. The right question is not how much to store. The right question is how slow can you learn to move? Because the person who stockpiles 6,000 calories a day of food and keeps moving 6,000 calories a day of life will run out of food at exactly the same rate as the person who stockpiles 2,000 and learned in week 2 how to sit still. The industry sells you a pantry. The survivors teach you a metabolism. Do the math before you move. The fifth law, the trust economy. You will trust 3 people, and only 3. Choose them now, before the lights go out. Samir Halabi. The medic from Homs wrote the cleanest version of this law. He wrote, in his 10th month, quote, 4. 3 is the number. It appears in nearly every long-term account. Not 2, not 5, 3. 2 is too few, because 2 can be broken by a single loss, and a single loss in a permanent collapse is a certainty, not a risk. 5 is too many, because the cognitive and emotional overhead of tracking the loyalty of 5 people in a ruined city will kill you. 3 is the sustainable number. 3 is the triangle that holds. And here is the hard part. The 3 will not be the 3 you expect. Before the collapse, you probably have a mental list of the people you trust most. Family members, a best friend of 20 years, a neighbor, a coworker. This raccoon pulled every journal that listed a before-collapse trust circle and an after-collapse trust circle, and the overlap was under 30%. Under 30, meaning, on average, 2 out of 3 of the people you would swear today would be in your foxhole will not be. And one person you barely know today will be the one who walks with you through year 3. Why? Because the collapse selects for different qualities than peacetime selects for. The brother-in-law you love because he is funny at Thanksgiving and always picks up the check, he is funny and generous because he has never been hungry. In month 5, when he has been hungry for 4 months, you do not know that man. The coworker who has your back in every meeting, she has your back because the stakes are low. In month 7, the stakes are not low. You do not know that woman. And the strange, quiet man on the 3rd floor, the one who never said more than hello in 9 years, who repairs old radios in his kitchen and has a slight limp from a war nobody talks about anymore. You have never really looked at him. In month 2, you will look at him. In month 4, he will be the second name in your triangle. Because he already knows what month 4 feels like. He has been there. He came back. And he recognizes you as someone who is about to go there for the first time. The trust economy selects for prior exposure, for quietness, For the ability to keep a secret for 30 years and then keep another one. For people who do not flinch. For people who do not explain themselves. For people who do not need to be liked. Almost none of those qualities are what peacetime friendships are built on. Peacetime friendships are built on laughter, shared interests, proximity, convenience. Collapse friendships are built on silence, shared risk, and the absolute certainty that the person across from you has weighed the cost and decided to stay. Choose your 3 now. Or rather, do not choose them. Watch for them. Start watching now. Not the people who say the right things, not the people who post the right things. The people who, in small pressures, respond with steadiness. The coworker who did not panic during the power outage. The relative who, when someone in the family got cancer, showed up every Tuesday for 8 months without being asked. The old neighbor who has never once asked you for anything. Those are the candidates, not the loud ones, not the brave ones, the steady ones. Yelena Rashidova, the nurse, wrote, __quote_5__. You will trust 3 people and only 3. Choose them now before the lights go out. The 6th law, the normalcy trap. The day you wait for things to go back to normal is the day the collapse wins. This is the law that killed the most people in the first 6 months of every collapse this raccoon studied. Not bullets, not disease, not starvation directly. The normalcy trap. The belief that next week, or next month, or in the spring, or after the election, or after the ceasefire, or after the new government is formed, things will return to the shape they had before. The belief that the collapse is an interruption, a long weekend, a storm that will pass. Irina Petrovna, a school teacher from Donetsk, wrote something in her journal in the 2nd year that this raccoon has not been able to forget. She wrote, __quote_6___. The normalcy trap has a specific mechanism. It works like this. Every day in a collapse, you make 100 small decisions. Do I use the last of the good coffee today, or save it? Do I repair the roof this week, or wait until the hardware store reopens? Do I enroll my child in the improvised school the neighbors are running in a basement, or wait until the real school starts again in September? Do I sell the car, or keep paying to hide it, because I will need it when I drive to my new job in the city that is currently on fire? Every one of those decisions has 2 paths, the normalcy path and the collapse path. The normalcy path says, save the coffee, wait on the roof, skip the basement school, hide the car, because any day now, things will go back and you do not want to have spent resources you will need when they do. The collapse path says, drink the coffee today because today is what you have. Fix the roof now because there is no hardware store anymore. Enroll the child in the basement school because that is in many ways, the harder path because it requires maintaining hope in a world that does not reward hope, but it is the path that bleeds you, slowly. 100 small decisions a day, each one costing a little more than the collapse path would have cost. Each one paid for out of a body and a bank account and a bag of rice that is not being refilled. By month 4, the people on the normalcy path have 30% less of everything than the people on the collapse path. By month 12, 60% less. By year 2, they are gone. And they died believing, right up to the last morning, that next week things would be different. The normalcy trap is especially cruel because it is baited with your own love. You do not want your child to believe the world has ended, so you act in front of the child as if it has not. You send the child to the school that is not running. You promise the birthday party that is not coming. You maintain the rituals of the old life because the rituals are how you love your child. And the rituals bleed you. And eventually, the rituals are all you have, and the calories are gone. And the child you were protecting from the truth is now the child who cannot survive the truth because you never taught her. Irina wrote, __quote_7__. Call back to episode 9. This raccoon talked about the first 72 hours of a grid-down event, about how your mindset in the first 3 days determines the next 3 years. This is the expanded version. Your mindset in the first 3 months determines whether you make it to year 3 at all, and the single biggest mindset killer is the belief that this is temporary. The day you wait for things to go back to normal is the day the collapse wins. The 7th law, the long game law. You are not surviving a crisis. You are building a life in the ruins. Start building on day 1. This is the law that breaks everyone. This raccoon warned you. It is the one the survivors talk about the least because it is the one that costs the most. And it is the one the industry cannot sell you because the industry is built on the premise of the short emergency. 3 days, 2 weeks, 90 days. The industry's entire business model is a product that ends. A permanent collapse does not end. That is what the word permanent means. If you are surviving a crisis, you are waiting. Waiting for rescue, for a ceasefire, for a restoration, for a return. Waiting is a strategy that assumes somebody else is coming. In every long-term account this raccoon read, the ones who kept waiting past month 6 are dead. All of them. The ones who survived stopped waiting and they started building. Building what? A new life. In the ruins. With the pieces that are still there. Dario Kovac, the judge-turned-carpenter from Sarajevo, did not wait to go back to being a judge. In the 4th month, he accepted that the courts were dead, probably for a generation, possibly forever. And he looked at his hands, and he taught himself carpentry. From a book. From his father's half-remembered lessons. From a retired craftsman 2 buildings over who had nothing to do. By the 7th month, he was repairing window frames in exchange for food. By the 2nd year, he was building coffins, which was the busiest trade in the city. He did not love carpentry. He did not want to be a carpenter. But the man who was a judge was dead, and the man who was a carpenter was alive. And his daughter was alive because the carpenter was alive. Anton Mirich, the mechanic from Grozny, did not wait to get his old garage back. He started a new one, in a shelled building, with tools he scavenged from the wreckage of 3 other garages. He trained 2 boys who would have been his apprentices in the old world, who were now his whole workforce, and he paid them in food because there was no money. By the 2nd year, his garage was the only working one in 6 blocks. By the 4th year, he had a reputation across the city. He was not rebuilding his old life. He was building a new one. In the ruins. This is the law. You are not surviving a crisis. You are building a life in the ruins. Start building on day 1, not day 90, day 1. On day 1, the industry will tell you to hide, to stockpile, to defend, to wait. All of those things have their place, for about 72 hours. After 72 hours, if you are still just hiding and stockpiling and defending and waiting, you are on the path that ends at month 6 with everybody you love dead. The survivors start building on day 1. Building trust, building skill, building a reputation, building a ledger of who owes what to whom, building a routine, building a new identity because the old one is going to die and something has to replace it, and the sooner that replacement starts forming, the better the chances that the replacement will be someone your daughter can still recognize as her father. This is the law that breaks people, because it asks them, on day 1, to accept that the world they had is gone. Not pausing, not resting, gone. And to start, while the old world is still warm, to build the new one. To grieve and build at the same time. To hold the memory of what was lost and the tools for what comes next in the same 2 hands. Most people cannot do it. Most people spend the first 6 months grieving and the next 6 months waiting, and by the end of the first year, they have not built anything, and the collapse has built their replacement for them. And it is not a kind replacement. The ones who can do it, the small minority who, on day one, start both grieving and building in the same hour, are the ones whose journals this raccoon read. They are the ones whose children grew up. They are the ones who, 20 years later, sit at a kitchen table in a country they fled to and stare at a cup of coffee for 40 minutes because they paid the price. And the price was real. And the coffee is cold now. And they are still here. 7 laws. Loneliness. You will betray your principles before you betray your family. Plan for it. Barter. The first month is cash. The second is cigarettes. The third is antibiotics. The fourth is bullets. Invisibility. The survivor who survives is the one nobody talks about. Calories. Every action costs calories. Every calorie costs a decision. Do the math before you move. Trust. You will trust 3 people and only 3. Choose them now. Normalcy. The day you wait for things to go back to normal is the day the collapse wins. Long game. You are not surviving a crisis. You are building a life in the ruins. Start on day 1. Those are the 7 laws, and here is the darker truth that ties them together. The survivors are not the heroes. The industry wants to sell you the fantasy that survival is a story of heroes. It is not. In every long-term account this raccoon read, the survivor looks at the mirror, in year 3, in year 5, and does not see a hero. Sees somebody who broke principles, traded keepsakes, ignored neighbors, lied to children, stopped helping strangers, chose the 3 over the 30, ate while others did not, walked past bodies without looking, and kept walking. That is not a hero. That is a person who chose, on day 1, that the people they loved would be alive at the end, and they paid the price in pieces of themselves. And the pieces do not grow back. Samir Halabi wrote, in the 5th year, quote, "Both things are true. That is the real 7th law, the one underneath the 7th law. You will do things you will never forgive yourself for. You will do them for the people you love. You will carry them for the rest of your life. And you will be alive to carry them. And the dead will not be. And that is the math. And there is no gear that changes the math. There is no course. No stockpile, no bug-out bag, no tactical vest, no promo code. The math is the math. So here is the ultimatum, the only one this raccoon is going to give you in this season. You have 2 choices. Choice 1, you continue to study the theater. You watch the tactical channels. You buy the gear. You read the prepper forums. You build a pantry. You keep believing that the collapse is a weekend, or a month, or a year, that ends with the grid coming back on, and your job still being there, and your daughter's school reopening in the fall. You will be in the normalcy trap. You will die in month 4, or month 7, or month 9. The specific month does not matter. The math is the math. Choice 2. You learn the 7 laws. You start internalizing them today, while the lights are still on, while the coffee still exists, while your principles are still cheap because they have not been tested. You watch for the 3. You practice invisibility in small ways. You start counting calories, not because you need to, but because you need to know how. You start seeing which of your relationships will survive the translation and which ones will not. You sit with the fact that the man or woman you are today will die in the 3rd month of any real collapse, and you start, quietly, building the person who will come next. You grieve a little for the version of yourself you are going to have to bury, and then you keep living the good life you have right now, because the good life is the training ground, and the laws do not forbid joy, they only forbid illusion. That is the choice, theater or doctrine, illusion or preparation, waiting or building. 19 episodes, 411 accounts, 7 laws, 1 darker truth. This is Raccoon Survival, Season 1, class dismissed. Season 2 begins in 3 weeks. It will not be about cities. It will not be about collapse. It will be about the people who came out. The ones who sat down at kitchen tables in countries they fled to and tried to learn how to drink a cup of coffee again. Because that is the part the survival industry will never teach, and it is the part this raccoon has been preparing to teach since day one. 3 weeks. Drink your coffee while it is warm. The lights are still on. Class dismissed.